Hello! You have wisely chosen one of Forshaw's stone mantles, and we are as enthusiastic as you to see it installed in your home. This demonstration will take you step by step through the installation process. Now let's get acquainted with your mantle. You should have received at least 5 individual pieces. The exact count will depend on which model you've chosen. The hearth sits on the floor in front of the fireplace. There are 2 separate legs on either side of the fireplace that hold up the header and the shelf. The header rests on top of the legs above the fireplace. Finally, the shelf sits on top of the header. Now let's introduce you to the tools and materials you are going to need to complete the installation. First, we are going to need white thinset, 2 5-gallon buckets, one for warm water and one to mix the thinset. A 1/2 inch mixing drill is preferred to mix the thinset. If you use a drill, you will also need a mixing blade for the drill. If you don't have a drill, any stick will do, but be sure to follow the thinset manufacturer's instructions precisely. A 1/2 inch notch trowel, rubber floats, sponges, a 4-foot level. You will need some kind of construction adhesive, and we will use liquid nails and Bondo in this demonstration. The tree bow saw may be necessary if you have to cut the legs. A mounting brace, which can be any piece of wood or bar strong enough to support the top shelf. You will also need 2 5 by 3/8 inch lag bolts. Once you have all of the necessary materials, you can begin. First, make sure you clean and flush level the subfloor. Once your subfloor is clean, take your level and make sure the subfloor is level. Mark out in front of the fireplace a 75 inch by 20 inch rectangle that the hearth is going to sit on. Now apply your thinset on the subfloor using the 1/2 inch notched trowel. Give yourself a good base. If you're not level, you can build up one side or the other to help level the hearth. Remember, though this hearth only weighs 100 pounds, it's a 2-man job to set it in front of the fireplace. Set the hearth centered in its place in front of the fireplace. With your tape measure, check for center. If it is not centered, you can still adjust the hearth after it is set. Once it is set, check the hearth to be sure that it is level. If it is not level, lift up one end and apply some more thinset to raise that end. Next, you need to grout all the way around the hearth, front and back. Then use your sponge and water to clean the hearth. Now we will move on to the legs. Each leg is 36 inches tall. Fireplaces vary in height, so you may need to cut the legs to the appropriate height with your bow saw. It's easy to do. Measure right to the top of the fireplace and down to the hearth. That is the length you will want for your legs. Say you want 34 inches. Measure 34 inches from the bottom of the leg and make a mark. Get a measurement on each corner to be sure that you are cutting squarely. Get a straight edge and draw the lines to connect your marks. Double check all your measurements. Then be sure to saw along these lines with smooth strokes. The legs should come up to right below the drywall and the top of the fireplace. We're working with new unpainted drywall, so no particular surface preparation is required. Now apply thinset to the back and bottom of the leg. Besides the large quantity of thinset adhesive shown, you should also put 5 or 6 $1/2 sized drops of liquid nails or equal onto each leg. Place the legs on the hearth so the inside of the leg lines up with the drywall. Grout the inside and outside of the leg around the bottom to get a strong grip to the drywall. Clean off the thinset and give it a nice finish. Check for level on the legs. If you need to make them level, now is a good time to do it without it being too noticeable. If you're an 1/8 inch out of level, put an 1/8 inch shim between the leg and header. Now you apply liquid nails and thinset to the back of the header. The header should be 61 inches high, so that should be the distance from the outsides to the top of the legs. If the legs are a 1/2 inch short one way or the other, that's okay. The header can stick out a little from the top of the legs. Set the header on top of the legs. Pack it into the drywall. Check it for level. Grout and clean just as you did with the other 2 steps. If your header is not level, you can put shims on top between the shelf and the header. Now get your shelf. Sand any painted area where the shelf will be mounting to. It is important to get down to bare drywall without dust residue to ensure a good bond. We don't need to do this step as we are working on newly laid drywall that has not been painted. Find the drywall stud and mark it. Measure up 4 3/4 inches from the header and mark the stud. Screw the lag bolts into the wall at the mark, leaving 2 inches of the lag bolt protruding from the wall. Transfer your measurements from the lag bolt's position in relation to the header onto the back of the shelf. So you should make marks 4 3/4 inches up from the bottom of the shelf. The horizontal intersection depends on the spacing of your studs. Once you've double-checked all your measurements, drill holes in the marked spots on the back of the shelf. Use a 1 inch to 1 1/4 inch drill bit. When you drill the holes, be sure to rotate your drill bit to hollow them out, creating a bell-shaped hole that becomes larger as you bore into the mantle. Then, when you fill the hole with Bondo adhesive, you will create a strong plug to help hold the shelf to the wall. Clean out the hole and sweep the dust particles off the back of the shelf so you have a clean surface to apply the adhesive to. You should use a high-quality 2-part epoxy adhesive like Bondo to fill the 2 holes into which the lag bolts will protrude. This type of adhesive sets up very fast and will provide an extremely strong bond. Now apply general dabs and strips across the back of the shelf using a liquid nail toward the top and bottom to hold on to the wall. We recommend at least 15 half-dollar size dabs of liquid nails. Go ahead and use up the whole tube. Then butter the remaining area along the back perimeter of the shelf with thinset. We call this method of grouting buttering because it is similar to wiping the butter from your knife at breakfast. Once this is done, the shelf goes right on top of the header. Make sure you line up the bottom of the shelf with the top of the header. Tap it so that it adheres to the wall. Prop the mounting brace under the top of the shelf to give the adhesive time to dry. Check and be sure your shelf is level, both across the top and from front to back. Shim it if necessary. Grout and clean just as with previous steps. When you've finished, double check for level across the top and front to back. Make sure your mounting brace is secure from under the top of the shelf to the floor or hearth. Finally, double check all of your grouting to make sure that it has the desired look. And so there you have the complete installation of your stone mantle. Please allow 48 hours for drying before you remove the brace or stand from the hearth. And enjoy!